This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast. It is season 17. It's episode 5. It's brought to you by Ambassador Cruise Line. Here we go. The night's drawing in. A dearth of cricket in the daytime and the enormous Christmas tree donated by the people of Oslo can mean only one thing. The very underwhelming Christmas markets at Trafalgar Square are about to begin. Okay, it's the first time I've read this, Alex. We'll see how this goes. But are you interested in something better than a half-hearted Santa's grotto, an undercooked sausage, and a lukewarm gull wine? Don't know if that's pronounced correctly. I don't really care. To get you in the Christmas spirit? Well, the renowned Christmas markets in Antwerp and Honfleur are just the ticket. There are many Christmas markets. No, let's try that again. These are Christmas markets as they should be. That's better. Cobbled streets, authentic food and wine, as many festive trinkets as you dare buy. There will be two of the four stops on the excellent Cricket Legends cruise operated by Ambassador Cruise Line. Between times, you'll also visit Amsterdam and Rouen and be entertained by the small matter of guests of honour. Jonathan Agnew, Henry Blofeld, Alex Tudor and Graham Gooch. Those four guys on the boat with you talking cricket. And bearing in mind that there's test matches going on throughout the cruise, 12th to the 19th of December. You can stay up all night on the boat watching England, who are they playing? New Zealand, in wherever they're playing their test matches. You can track what's going on the Border Gavaskar Trophy as well. You can wake up in the morning after probably having a couple of glasses of wine with those guys and mull over it as they do the formal and informal. Ridiculously generous starting price, 559 quid per person for 7 nights. You couldn't get that at an Airbnb in the place I mentioned before. And then there's a 10% discount because you're a Final Word listener. Final Word 10 is the code you pop in. Final Word 10. It's all in the show notes. Very easy to do. AmbassadorCruiseLine.com, and you'll be sailing away to beat the winter blues. It's in the show notes. Check it out. Ambassador Cruise Line, giving you the chance to cruise with Cricket Legends this December 12 to December 19. Hop on and do it. I said we've got a very busy second segment. Some of the stuff we were meant to get into segment 1 hasn't quite made the cut. It'll get in here. First of all, I said it was a comprehensive discussion of the Australian team. The one thing I missed out on, though, Dan Breddick's story yesterday about Will Bukowski. Now, Peter Gordon, originally Gordon Legal and now Slater Gordon, one of the major firms in this part of the world, a very high-profile lawyer, an extremely good manager of the media as well, very good at getting messages out and all the rest of it. And he has done this here, saying that they have sourced the medical records for Bukowski. It does feel like there was some almost finality in this story a few weeks ago, the way it was being reported. Now maybe not quite so much. He's returned from Europe. He's back in Melbourne by reports again. And what actually happens next, I mean, I wouldn't have a clue, but now that the lawyers are involved, it could be a protracted process.
Yeah, my understanding is it's going to take a long time. Great story by Bretto. He's been across this at every turn. The key part of it, I think, from what I can gather, is they're looking at what's happened in the AFL to guys like Angus Brayshaw and Nathan Murphy. Murphy, actually, someone who knows Will very well. So It's a unique case in Australian cricket, having a player suffer concussions and be pseudo-medically retired. Not that he's obviously retired yet, but it's going to take a long time to work out not just his current earnings are his current earnings. It's loss of future earnings that'll be the key part, and there'll be lawyers at 10 paces and medical experts brought on both sides to see how that plays out. So there's plenty to go through, but you just hope the best for Will. That's all you want.
Yeah. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. I mean, it's obviously very difficult in a sensitive area to talk about, but it was in the media yesterday, so we'll keep an eye on through the summer. Women's World Cup, wow, what a finish that was. A feel-good story for New Zealand with Susie Bates and Sophie Devine after so much disappointment. Expectation of previous tournaments where New Zealand were nowhere, and we've been critical of them. It's been, a decade since they made it to the elimination stage of a global tournament. It felt like they were destined to do so around that time that the WBBL and the Kia Super League started. It's taken them until 2024, to get to that place again. And they've only gone and bloody won it against a very strong South African team. They held their nerve in the final, and they've done it with players like Brooke Halliday, who played an important role in the final, Maddie Green, who've flattered to deceive in terms of their returns, and of course Mealy Kerr, who was outstanding and player of the tournament. It's a great story, chuffed for them. I'm not sure what this means for the multi-speed economy of women's cricket. This doesn't change the reality of where some countries are investing more than others. It doesn't change the fact that New Zealand are lower on that pyramid, if you like, at the moment. This isn't panacea stuff or anything like it. But it is great to know, and I think Gideon made this point in a piece he wrote the other day. Ultimately, if you put 11 cricketers on the field against 11 other cricketers, sometimes the team that has fewer resources wins, and that's what's happened here with New Zealand going all the way to the final and winning the bloody thing.
Yeah, it's a great summation, Colin. The thing that I found fascinating, it's an extraordinary achievement just as a standalone. They lost 10 consecutive T20Is in the lead-up, and I watched every ball of that series they had against Australia. They were very good with the ball, but just short with the bat.
Yep.
And they showed Australia were vulnerable, but they were beaten quite soundly in all three games. And there was some weak links there, and you touched on a few of them. Halliday didn't really look like it. It is a masterclass of sound, stable leadership. You hear from people, certainly around the WBBL, about the leadership capabilities and strength of character of people like Sophie Devine and Ben Sawyer, who was the coach. For them to hold their nerve the whole way through, all through those losses, all through the lead-in, to continue to back their players, it's an astounding effort and a model others should probably follow. Any other country in the world would have made wholesale changes, and they didn't. Halliday comes in, they stuck with it because they needed a left-hander in that order, and she tees off against the two left-arm orthodox spinners and the leg spinner and makes a really important score. And then, Amelia Kerr, outstanding. Maddie Green was actually in good form against Australia. So, a great effort. Hats off to New Zealand. The way they set their team up, set their leadership up, they do it on the men's side as well. The stability that they have means that their players can have confidence. And even though they go through lulls and bad periods of form, they'll find their way out. And you hate to use the term, but they always punch above their weight. And it's in part because of the way that they structure things up and the backing they give their players. It's an incredible performance.
I genuinely thought they'd been overtaken because there was the big three in women's cricket, and it wasn't India, Australia, England. It was New Zealand as the third banana in that sort of combination. But as I say, for the better part of a decade, they just weren't getting to that stage of tournaments. And there was such a heavy reliance on Bates and Devine. And I reckon I did my first sort of "Are you going to retire now?" Susie interview, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, when she hurt her shoulder, maybe 2019, and that was a real and present possibility for one of the greats of women's cricket. But to win a World Cup at this age for her, brilliant. And Devine, who's been captain for a long time now, I interviewed her a couple of years ago about the challenges she's experienced with her mental health and and getting on the field and staying on the field and all that kind of thing. She's an absolute gem, and I recommend jumping on the ICC channels, and you'll hear Millie Kerr had the guitar out and Jess Kerr, her sister, singing along to a Maori song, and it's absolutely delightful. Almost in choir with the whole team together. I think they were singing to Devine. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really is one of these things you see, and you're so impressed by the individuals who oftentimes are in women's dressing rooms around the world. And South Africa too, just a note for them, powering through to the final after losing that thriller to England. I genuinely thought at that stage they'd fall away, and they were just not quite there yet. But to get through that semi-final and I know that it was at the expense of Australia, and that's interesting of itself, but this is South Africa's second final in a row. And they had all that internal drama a couple of years ago with Danae van Niekerk and Shadnam Ismail retiring prematurely, and there was a lot more going on than they got reported at the time in terms of the factions inside that dressing room. They've just found a way to kind of keep things together and keep it on the tracks, because at their best, their bowling's as good as anyone going. So, they've been defeated here again. It'll be frustrating for the leadership group there, but the beauty of women's cricket, there's another World Cup around the corner. There always seemingly is. That's the nature of modern white ball stuff.
Yeah, they've been showing signs as well. They beat Australia in Australia.
Yep.
And it looks like Laura Woolbart's really growing in her leadership.
Absolutely.
They're getting some great contributions out of places where they didn't think they would be. And watch the innings against Australia. Out of the top draw. So, great signs for them. They just need to stick at it. It's one of those things, 1,000 hits at the stone and eventually to break.
As for Australia, missing out here, injuries at the wrong time, but 3 sixes in the competition. That's another sort of way to spin it, that maybe other teams are happier playing more expansive cricket than Australia, playing more technically correct cricket. And we've seen it in different domestic tournaments around the world. I remember notably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a bit longer than that actually, when Northants won the Blast, playing most unorthodox cricket with a team that had a much smaller payroll, but they found a way to clock the T20 format. And maybe that's something here, I'm not sure, maybe not, but as for Healy, who was the biggest injury of that lot, saying that they picked the wrong game to risk. I think she would have played the final, didn't play the semi, felt she had one game in her, and said in hindsight she should have played the game in the final four. I mean, it's all irrelevant now, that kind of conversation. But the last time they didn't win a tournament was 2017. They've been on that extraordinary tear since. It does feel odd that Australia hadn't won this. You almost price it in when these women's tournaments start that Australia will win unless something remarkable happens. And I suppose that's exactly what did when South Africa knocked them off.
Yeah, they were vulnerable in the 12 months leading in. You saw them in the Ashes. They lost the T20I series, lost a home T20 international to both the West Indies and South Africa last year. That never happens.
Yep.
And you touched on the style of cricket. I think they have lent a lot on the depth of talent. But what they probably haven't done is take their game to another level as everybody began to catch up. I think it just looks like they've just rested on their laurels a fraction. And you mentioned the three sixes. For as good a player as Elise Perry is, she's one of the all-time greats, and she's done a tremendous job to get back into that key 3-4 slot for Australia in T20 cricket after some really good years at franchise level. But she hasn't been able to elevate her game at international level and take the necessary risks. And had the pairing of her and McGrath, I think at times cost them in this tournament. The pinch hit use of Warren didn't make a lot of sense. Your best two dynamic players, your two youngest players in Litchfield and Sutherland, hardly used in the tournament. Sutherland and Gardner not batting in the semi-final.
Yeah, that hurts, doesn't it?
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think they need it to rethink how they play as a batting unit. The bowling's still there, but they need a bit more dynamism. They need to take a few more risks. The game is moving forward. I think they need to push it forward rather than be the team that's chased. I think they have the chance to push the game up another level.
Yeah, and that's good, right? Like this is healthy, this conversation about where they can take it next. I know some people get very upset when you criticise the Australian women's team because they're so extraordinary, and they are so extraordinary, but it is healthy to go, right, well, this is where it's not working, or hasn't worked, rather, at the pointy stage of this tournament. It was exactly the same thing that happened in 2017. They lost the World Cup semi to India. There was a lot of introspection, and they came out and they were formidable for the next number of years, and they won everything in their way. And look at that 2018 T20 World Cup, Urthboy Ash Gardner. She was player of that tournament, player of the final at the very least. And as you say, didn't bat in the semi-final here. That's just a miscalculation, I think. That maybe it's that the ceiling is not as high as it could be if they were more expansive and happy to take more risks.
Sutherland was player of the 100.
Yep.
And was batting at 8 in this time. I had some conversations with people around Australian cricket raising their eyebrows at that. And Litchfield she is the star of the future. She's the most dynamic, inventive player. The one left-hander in that middle order. She probably needs to be batting in the top 4. So they can build the team around those two. They're going to be formidable. But a good opportunity for them. Great for world cricket. And it'll be interesting to see how they move forward from here, but they won't need to make wholesale change. Just some little tweaks here.
And sadly, they won't be able to defend their Commonwealth Games gold medal at Glasgow. Now, this is a funny one, isn't it? Cricket's in the Olympic Games now, in no small part, because they showed at Birmingham how well a cricket tournament could work at a global multi-sport event, right? So that's helped build the case, and now the Com Games have punted it, along with a bunch of other sports, by the way. It's not just cricket, and this is partly a legacy item of the Commonwealth Games being scaled back after the hosting of it here in Victoria went the other way, and there was no suitor, and it's gone back to Glasgow where it was in 2014, and cricket's hit the cutting room floor. It is difficult to grapple with from the logic that works so well. I was there at that Birmingham tournament in 2022, and there'll be frustration there too. But I suppose the Olympic Games are the big one now, and that'll be where people turn their attention.
I do know the high performance units on both the men's and women's side have already had to start planning for that, which is been interesting from their perspective because they see that so far ahead of some of their more pressing assignments to work towards. And some of the people who are in key roles at the moment may not even be in key roles by the time that rolls around. But
right.
They are looking at that, and it all fits in with part of the funding from the AOC and things like that. It's interesting. Yeah, as you say, it's probably a broader conversation. I mean, diving's not in the Commonwealth. Saying so. Yeah, it's just one of those things. But it is disappointing that, certainly for a country like India, that they don't get the chance to have one of their most talented group of athletes compete in a sport where they're really strong.
That's right. And look, in reference to money and where revenue sources will be drawn from into the future, we get a bit of an insight from CA each time they have their AGM as to where things sit. They reported a $32 million loss, but that's better than they expected because we have this 4-year cycle where they, in summary, make a shitload of money when England's men are here and when India's men are here, and they make far less money and they have to experienced the cycle on the other side of things when it's like last year when it was Pakistan and West Indies. Remarkable in a way that so much of it comes down to who's touring. Like, in this modern age, so many different diversified revenue streams that, broadly speaking, it comes down to how many bums on seats and how many people are watching the cricket, right? So that's the major takeaway, I suppose, the headline number. They've still got their war chest, a $27 million reserve fund, which was eaten into during COVID, but they expect that's going to boom in the next 2 years when they have these summers with India here over the next few months and England here, the men, that is, the following time around. And, of course, they've had the new TV deal inked, and that starts this year. So all things are well financially, superficially. I mean, we don't get much more than what's said there in the annual report. And as we say, that the next 2 years are when they can really fill the coffers again.
Yeah. I guess they'd love to decouple the cyclical financial health away from just relying on England and India, wouldn't they? How they do that, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that this year they're going to make a big push to make the test players available for the BBL. There's a short window there, but there's a huge push and pull between, again, the high performance unit and the BBL, because those players are going to need that window to rest and prepare for Sri Lanka.
They can't. I just genuinely don't think they can do it. Yeah. It would be so, bearing in mind they would have played 5 high-octane Border Gavaskar test matches, a small window before rebooting in Sri Lanka. And who knows, they might need to win 1 or 2 of those test matches to make the World Test Championship final. It would be totally negligent to roll them out, to change formats, go into camp, go on the road for a couple of games, when really what they should be doing is detoxing for a couple of weeks. Surely the high-performance unit wins out there. But I get the commercial reality of the Big Bash is watched far more when, players that people have a very easy name recognition of are playing on television at 7:30. I understand the tension, but surely that's a decision that's made for them due to the calendar this year.
It's not that simple. Well, yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out. And it's all one pot of money. It's interesting where it goes and who gets priority. But I do think, the national team at the end of the day is the main product.
Yeah,
how you continue to leverage off that and ensure that the health and the finances of the game are sound when that is so much dependent on the opponent every year. It's a fascinating thing that the next CEO is going to have to do.
They refer to the Olympics as another opportunity to make money, and it probably will be. And as you say, AOC funding and that kind of thing. Where I get a bit like, we make a big emphasis about how well cricket is running and the finances, and participation numbers are good. They increase year on year, and we give ourselves a pat on the back as the game more widely. But this is at the same time that Test cricket's in peril around the world, like this cognitive dissonance, where we're kind of it's all good at home, but look at the situation outside of our own borders, not just like country to country, but as a whole, the conversations that are being had out in public now, that MCC Cricket Connects conference that was held a couple of months ago, where Kumar Sangakkara and Brendan McCullum actively speaking about Test cricket no longer being played by their nations, let alone being played to compete and win World Test Championships and that kind of thing. So, part of me is it's good that things are well here, but the greater good has to be considered as well. And I know that Mike Baird and Nick Hockley are very aware of this. They are 2 people within the game who see the bigger picture about the need for the redistributive model and the Test Cricket Fund that's being talked about forever, seemingly, but has some momentum at the moment. But it feels like structurally we can't just assume that things will continue as they always have, because they're probably not going to.
They need to make a call to Auckland. The New Zealand cricket CEO said just recently, if it was up to them, they'd just play T20s, and that's it. That's the only thing that would make it commercially viable for them. And they've just had a great test win. So, it's something that somebody has to stand up at some stage and show some leadership here. It's a question of whether anybody will be able to do it.
I don't know who the next CEO is. Nick Hockley indicated in August he was going to step down from the role soon. They've said here they're in no hurry or no rush, I think was the phrase from Mike Baird upon release of the AGM report last week. Says Todd Greenberg, who runs the ACA, is the front runner. There's the usual global search air quotes going on at the moment, but I don't know, is Johnny Grave in the frame here? He's left cricket West Indies. Could there be someone who understands the plight of the wider world that could be looked at? And probably not. But that'd be an indication of that forward thinking that we're referring to here, trying to ensure that Cricket Australia continues to be profitable and successful, whilst at the same time giving it the absolute all behind the scenes at ICC level to make sure that we don't end up at the singularity where the entire world revolves around the conglomerates who own T20 franchises around the earth. That seems to be, the very fact that we were, again, only a couple of weeks ago, referring to Saudi Arabia hosting the IPL draft. How long before Saudi Arabia is hosting the second IPL? More T20 domestic tournaments popping up, which are essentially satellite comps for the IPL and clubs accordingly. That's I feel like if CA did something that did two things at the same time, that could do an awful lot of good.
Rave's a really interesting note. I'd be curious to, you might have the opportunity at some stage to speak to him, but I'd be curious to know if he was interested in something like that. I had heard him linked to a job in Australia at one point, but it didn't work out. So it's a fascinating next little while. And the person who sits in that chair has a huge task because there is no FTP beyond 2027.
Yeah. And that's the same. And just to be clear, that means that the World Test Championship, which is the bedrock of scheduling from a men's perspective at the moment, in the way we understand it right now, 9 teams and all the rest of it, that continues for one more cycle after this, and everything's on the table. We often hear, it's often briefed that the World Test Championship could become 6 teams. Okay, then. So we're going to say that 3 teams are omitted. Who are they? That decision, those types of decisions are going to have to be made pretty bloody soon. And CA are party to them as members of, it's a members organisation, the ICC ultimately. So that big job. Yeah, it's a lot going on there. It's, I guess, some good news around the Test world this week that we've seen the teams that weren't expected to win. New Zealand getting up over India in a bizarre Test match. We saw India knocked over for 46 on a juicy one after losing day one at Bangalore. Their lowest score at home ever. It went on to see New Zealand win their first Test match in India since 1988 after making 400 plus. But between times, it genuinely looked like New Zealand were going to lose that. When India were rattling along in the second dig, 150 for Sarfaraz Khan. Rishabh Pant, another scorer in the 90s, but as has been remarked upon by Jared Kimber and others, the 6 that Rishabh Pant hit in the 90s, which required the ball to be changed when it was knocked out of shape, that ended up weirdly being a turning point, and New Zealand go on to hold their nerve and chase about 130 odd to win the match.
Yeah, fascinating Test match. And there was a moment, even though they were only defending that low score, Jasper Bumrah had a going around corner.
Yeah.
And New Zealand were 2 for not many. And then Will Young and Rachin Ravindra played beautifully. Ravindra was so good in the first.
What a player.
He attacked Ashwin. It was a masterclass. I thought Devon Conway's innings too, after New Zealand had bowled India out on day one, he ensured that any sniff that India had of replying in kind with the ball was snuffed out like that. That was a really underrated innings. Yeah, wonderful Test match win. And now they're going to go to Pune. It'll be an absolute rag.
It'll be a snake pit. Nothing more certain. So I don't know whether Matt Henry will get to play. He did take his 100th Test wicket, which we enjoyed after a frugal 5. If you've not seen the highlights of the first innings, the All Out 46, it's worth watching because when it went on song, New Zealand's seam attack, which boasts more to it than I guess we think a little bit. We get stuck in the Bolt Southey mindset, have done for such a long time. But Will O'Rourke saw Ben Sears when we were in New Zealand earlier this year as well, and Matt Henry, who's essentially leading the attack these days. They've got a bit coming through.
Yeah, and I think Southey stepping down will free that up a little bit and allow for the next gen to play. And again, I was praising New Zealand cricket for the way that they are able to create some stability, but sometimes it has worked against them, and hanging on with Southey for as long as he did was working against them. But they've shown a little bit of flexibility. He still had an important role to play in this Test match, but now he doesn't have to be picked in every game. O'Rourke looks outstanding. He's speaking to some of the Australian players who faced him in March. They were very impressed with him. And then I love the Matt Henry story. He's 32, and for anyone who is a Cameron Green fan, Matt Henry is a great example of how that surgery that Green is having can be successful. He had it at 20.
Wow. I thought he's a bit older than that. Okay.
22. So he's got wires. He's got a wire, about 10 centimetre wire in his back and screws, and he's bowling better than ever 12 years later.
Yeah,
and having a huge say in Test cricket in all conditions. Some conditions in New Zealand, and then he got some nice conditions on the first day in Bengaluru, but he also bowled very well in the second. So
quite a crew, that, isn't it? So Matt Henry, James Pattinson, Shane Bond, Jason Berendorf, and now Cameron Green. And there'll be others as well. They've had that. Ben Dorshus, good call. So, yeah, the crew have had their spine fused together. I think it's the way I always squeam when I hear that. Spine fused together.
Having spoken to Dorf about it, and James Pattinson has actually said it as well, it feels like they have concrete basically injected in there. It's a remarkable procedure. But 24 out of 26 who've had it have been successful. One who hasn't been successful, who's on the way back, is going to play the Super Specialist Sunrise, Cole Jamieson.
All right.
So we'll see how he ends up. And he's a unique case in terms of size and what has happened to him. But, yeah, I'd be curious to see how he...
And from an Indian perspective, Rishabh Pant didn't keep in the second innings, just noting ahead that, any small knock was his knee that got a knock when wicket keeping. Well, we're going to be careful with this guy because he did have operations on both of his knees after that horrible car crash. So, whether he's fit for all the tests in Australia, time will tell on that, whether they need to manage him. Speaking of management, well, they'll be thrilled to see that Mohammad Shami, by all reports, is bowling at full pace at training during the week, and that's a small step on the way to him being available with Jasprit Bumrah to take the new ball in Perth. And if they can, once again, they're going to be a total handful. So hopefully all the big guns from India make it here for the first test starting on the 22nd of November.
You'd think so. I mean, we were talking earlier about the big three Australian quicks trying to get through 5 test matches.
Yes.
India will need their depth, given where Shami's at. Given Bumrah had issues no longer than, 18 months ago with his back. Again, they'll face the same test. So if they picked, which you'd think they would, Jadeja in their top 7 plus Ashwin, it gives them a different dynamic. They can probably lessen their loads across the board. But the same issues that apply to the Australian attack apply to the Indian attack. They're going to have a short turnaround between Adelaide and Brisbane, and then as the series goes, they're going to have to...
All right, quick break, and then we'll round out our show today. Final word with Adam Collins and Alex Malcolm. We were just talking about Test cricket around the world with New Zealand defeating India. England lost to Pakistan, which shouldn't be a shock given they were playing the Test in Pakistan, but it's their first win at home since 2021. I couldn't believe that when I saw it, nearly 4 years. Shan Masood getting his first win as Test captain after a torrid time. I think we all instinctively like Shan Masood. He gives a good quote, very articulate, interesting guy to talk to when the mics aren't on. But when you boil it down, hasn't had a good time of it as the Pakistani leader. So he gets off the mark on that front. And loving the fact that Sajid Khan and Noman Ali took all the wickets between them. Anyone who went to Pakistan in 2022 or followed that series had big soft spots for those two guys, having to do a lot of hard work and bowling out England twice. That's a team that had taken 840-odd runs from them the previous week. 5 changes to the team, all the other chaos around Pakistani cricket. That would have felt good for Jason Gillespie, the coach. Just a little bit of pressure off his back.
Very much so. Noman Ali's actually got a remarkably good record when he's in the team.
Yeah.
Pakistan win when he plays, so it's probably less than that. Can I recommend to your listeners and viewers, please read my man Daniel Wasil's work. He has written some of the greatest stuff you will ever read. He predicted the collapse in the first Multan Test the day before it happened, and he wrote a spectacular piece after this win, talking about it being a short-term sugar rush, comparing it to a very particular Pakistani sweet delicacy. But yeah, he's been in top form in this series. But yeah, fascinating. I mean, 20-odd selectors over a couple-of-year period, dropping a Bumrah's arm. They find a way to win. And now, I mean, you were in Pindi, right, in 2022. Yeah. They're trying to manufacture something, but that thing is the flattest wicket in the world.
Well, they're trying to scarify it. They've got the fans at both ends. No, fans at both, because when they went back to hosting Test cricket in 2022 thereabouts, 21. Pindi was the track that was doing all sorts with seam. Hassan Ali had a 10-wicket match there, for instance. But now, it's the flattest track on earth. And they probably they surely realise their comparative advantage is the spinning ball. So how do they make Pindi spin? That's the question. England, for the third Test match that starts next week, have left out Carson Potts, who both did a good job in a losing effort. Farhan Ahmed's an extra spinner. And Gus Atkinson, who bowled so well in the first Multan Test match. It's from England's perspective, they collapsed in the first innings. Then they were chasing the game. There's an image of Ben Stokes that, it was almost instantly iconic, wasn't it? His bat being thrown 50 metres away when dancing down the track and getting stumped. It sort of typifies the way in which the England team, under the Bazball regime, when they win, as they did the previous week, a remarkable, staggering come-from-behind win after conceding 550. And then this week, not finding a way to consolidate their position after Ben Duckett made a rapid 100 to get them going. This is what we see with this modern England team. They can win from anywhere, and they can also put in performances which are just bewildering.
Yeah, when it spins, it's a real challenge for them. My colleague Matt Roller wrote a really interesting piece in the lead into this game, and he just noted Ben Stokes' record against spin in Asia, and it's terribly good. He's such a phenomenal player under pressure and has been a wonderful servant to England cricket, obviously, and a match winner of the likes of which we've rarely ever seen in world cricket. But his record against spin in all conditions, it just would have been fascinating if Lyon didn't go down at Lords.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's had a stranglehold on Stokes. So that matchup coming up in a couple of years' time out here would be fascinating. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what kind of wicket that turns up. I was pleased actually for Jack Leach to as well. He's an excellent cricketer. I faced him actually in grade cricket in Perth when he was out there for a year. Very impressive bowler, very impressive cricketer.
It's funny that he went from he's beneath Shah Bashir in the depth chart. It's a quirky one where Bashir is probably number 3 in the depth chart at Somerset, with young Archie Vaughan. Well, he looks like a real cricketer, and Leach being the preferred spinner when everyone's available, and that meant Bashir had to go on loan this season, for instance. But I guess the longer-term investment in Bashir, he took wickets this week, the idea that his best ball and wanting to see a different kind of spinner, a little bit less conventional in Australia as it compares to Leach, who's, I guess, more predictable. I suppose we'll see. There's plenty of time to run on that debate. Jordan Cox is going to make his test debut in New Zealand because Jamie Smith will be on paternity leave. So another one of these characters who's coming through who scores at a rapid rate. They want him in the team. They want to find a way for him across the formats. So Jordan Cox, who moved to Essex this year and had a bumper year, will get his chance. The third and final test match from around the world during the week, Bangladesh, South Africa. We're a couple of days into that. That's the test that was going to be Shakib Al Hassan's farewell at Dhaka. Then it was seen as too much of a security risk for him to go home and play. I'd be shocked if that's the end of him, really, because he strikes me as the kind of guy who will have at least 3 comebacks. But Shakib wasn't there this week. And look, I saw this as a great opportunity for Bangladesh. They beat Pakistan 2-0 in Pakistan. Yes, they'd lost to India recently, also a 2-0 margin. They brought in Phil Simmons at the last minute as coach, which is very on brand. And I suppose now Phil Simmons probably qualifies as a journeyman, coached several international teams by this point. But a pitch that tends to rag. We saw last year that test match against New Zealand around this time of year when it spanned from moment one. It felt like a lot of emphasis was going to be on Keshav Maharaj. But as it turns out, it was South Africa and Maharaj and Rabada who did the job and bowled them out for 100 odd on day one. And in the process, Kagiso Rabada, 300th test wicket, best strike rate ever to get to that milestone, taking a wicket with every 39 balls. And the quickest there by delivery set down by about 750 with Waqar Younis the standard bearer to that point. So Rabada, mad for all seasons. A shame how little test cricket he gets to play these days. A reminder of that story we were telling before about the inequities in global cricket.
Incredible bowler. Watching him live at his best, it's really, really special. You've seen more of him live than I have, actually. But I'd be curious to know what his record would be like if he was playing in a country where he could have been managed carefully so he was at his best more often for more targeted periods. It's just the nature of South African cricket and the nature of him as a person and what he means to them, that he has to play all the time. You can see the more he plays, the heavier his loads, the more his pace drops up. But when he's fresh and he's best, devastating. I just wanted to mention Cole Rayner, actually. His test record doesn't reflect the talent, I don't think. If you look at his first class record, it's exceptional.
About 100. But you're right, isn't it?
He's only averaging 27.
Yeah.
But he got 100 in this game. I thought he played superbly out here. He got a couple half centuries against Australia.
That's right.
18 months ago, under real pressure on difficult wickets. He got 60 on that absolute nightmare of a track in Gabba and played really well. Really impressive that he's come out and scored 100 in this game. I noted that was just his 8th test innings since that series against Australia finished in January of 2023.
Blimey.
Jamie Smith made his test debut in July of this year. He's already played 13. It just shows you how little.
Yeah, and look, it's an ongoing problem with scheduling and the way that South African cricketers have to make these compromises, and there are better ways to do this. It's just going to take a while. South Africa well ahead in that first test at Dhaka at the halfway mark or thereabouts. England's white ball squad's been announced for the Windies. Liam Livingston, who wasn't in the team last time around, is now the captain because Josh Butler's got that calf problem. Is that the third time Josh has done that? I think it's the third time. It's a bit of a thing. So just one to keep an eye on. But yeah, the other thing that drew everyone's attention is that Salt and Pepper are going to be opening for England. Michael Pepper had a great couple of years with Essex, is getting a chance to open the batting with Phil Salt. So a headline writer's dream.
And it's funny, Pepper's 100 for Climate Spirits.
Yeah.
Very lean, incredibly lean. Although he had a great finish in the championship for his 200s at the back end of the year. So, yeah, it'd be interesting. A lot of people around the place think highly of him as a player. So, I'm curious to see.
And that Livingston thing, I don't know where he fits really. I'm endlessly fascinated by the way that his career trajectory is going, as I am with Shakib Mahmood, by the way, who, he was talking about playing Test cricket again on an interview I heard as recently as like a month ago. Had a great end to the 100, won the comp for the Spirit, bowling on the final evening, or for the Oval Invincibles, my apologies, on the final night, but has now taken a white ball only contract from Lancs to give himself flexibility to go and play franchise cricket. I mean, I don't know, is that where we're at, where a bowler as capable as him? He's 27. It's not like he's 32 and trying to cash in at the end. This is a guy who England had playing Test cricket only a couple of years ago. I know he's had lots of injuries and so on, and maybe his body and the rigours of 4-day cricket might be part of this. Maybe there's more information that we're not aware of, but it does strike me as strange that someone who I still think of as being part of the England Test setup, broadly speaking, could at this juncture be thinking, oh, I might go and cash in franchise land. It doesn't strike me as look, ultimately this is going to happen more and more. I've got to get used to it, but it's jars.
This comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the contracting model. I know in Australia, they're looking at an example like this going, our contracting model is not fit for purpose because we will lose a player like Shakib Mahmood in the same manner. And a really good equivalent right now is Spencer Johnson.
Right, yeah.
He notionally wants to play red ball cricket, played one Shield game at the back end of last season, but because he's had so many injuries in his career, franchise opportunities have come his way because his prowess in T20 cricket has been excellent. He's taking them, playing non-stop in franchise comps around the world, and he's not spending the time doing what Pat Cummins is doing right now, a long build into a first-class test match summer.
Yeah.
And unless you pay a player to spend the time to work on their craft, then they're going to want to supplement their income with money grabs elsewhere. It's the easy option.
Yeah, you need to pay them to rest, in essence, and not play.
That is the really hard part for national boards, and the only boards there's only 3 boards that can do it, and even 2 of them are struggling to do it. So, that's a huge problem, and it's just going to happen.
Bit of fun to finish. Jay Shah, who's becoming the Supremo at ICC headquarters, the new independent chair, already changing the rules. So every elections every second year, now elections every third year. So that pesky democracy thing. Not that it would have made a lick of difference, but he occasionally says things that your ears pick up for the right reasons. Let me put it that way. And I know there's the wider politics around his appointment, and I understand the power play, and I understand that he could only serve in that role at the BCCI for so long before he needed another job. But it doesn't look great, does it? That there'll be fewer elections just coincidentally at the time when he's taking over.
The optics. There's not much more you can say, really, isn't it?
No, you're probably right. Hey, not much more that we can say either. We've rattled through, just like it was when Matt Roller co-hosted a few weeks ago. It's ESPNcricinfo, guys. You've got that breadth. We can talk about anything, and I love that. Alex Malcolm, you've been a terrific co-host. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to everybody for listening and for being part of what we do. Patreon.com/thefinalword if you want to support what Jeff and I do around the world and how we put the show out 250 times a year or whatever we're up to now. We've got the dailies coming for the Border Gavaskar, then the Women's Ashes later in the year as well. Then we're off to Sri Lanka. So it's going to be an incredibly busy summer when Jeff and I are back together, when he's back off the road doing his thing on the American election, which I think is about 11 days away from now or something like that. Between times, you'll hear from Andy Zoltzman. He's going to co-host Storytime for the first time, so that'll be a real treat. That's the next long interview in the feed. The Final Frontier episodes, which are the documentary that Dan Brettig, Shannon Gill, and myself made, or I say documentary, the series we made on the greatest season it was feed, had the interview with Harsha Bogle in the feed yesterday. Chats coming up with a whole bunch of players who were instrumental to building that rivalry between Australia and India through the 90s and the 2000s, and an interview with Glenn Maxwell. Glenn Maxwell on Book Club when the embargo lifts on The Showman. That'll be on Friday night Australia time, and you can take it in across the weekend. Al, great to have you.
Loved it, Colo. Love to do it again. Safe travels home.
Thank you so much. This has been The Final Word, Season 17, Episode 5. We'll catch you again very, very soon.